So this Saturday, we will see Cory Sandhagen take on TJ Dillashaw, a returning TJ Dillashaw, in a fight that is basically here to determine the #1 contender for the UFC Bantamweight Champion of the world. And I am extremely excited. I'm sure you are. That's why you clicked on this video. Before we talk about it, my name's Rahul Jchand. This is the Battle Camp. Thank you very much for joining me. Please do subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. So look, man, a few months ago, 4, 5, 6 months ago, we had a period, like we had a 2 or 3 week period where the UFC just announced fight after fight, just kept announcing banger after banger. And we were just sat here like kids around Christmas getting excited about all of these presents that the UFC were giving us. And some of those fights have already happened and some of them are yet to happen. But out of all of those fights that got announced in that little period, this is the fight that I was most excited about. And I'm not trying to be a hipster MMA fan by making that statement, but genuinely speaking, that is like when I saw that this fight got made, it just filled me with intrigue. Like my mate, Redneck True Spouter, shout out to you, sir, emailed me this week talking about this fight, and he was saying there's so many questions, and I agree, I concur, sir. There are so many questions surrounding this fight, and that's what I like. I feel like a broken record, but I always say the fights that I'm excited to see the most are where there's a number of questions that I'm only going to get the answer to when the two men square off against each other in the octagon, and that will happen this Saturday after a slight delay. So the fight itself, right? So obviously, Cory Sandhagen, it's quite funny. He got knocked out. He got submitted by Aljamain Sterling around this time last year, so it was June last year, and he was basically in this very same spot in 2020 going into that fight, because that was basically a #1 contender fight, right? And he came up short. In fact, he came out really short because he got finished in the first round. And since then, it just feels like his stock has just risen after 2 very impressive performances against Marlon Moraes, obviously, and then that flying knee against Frankie Edgar that near enough decapitated him. And he's back in that very same spot against a high profile opponent. And for me personally, like, I like him. I like his fighting style. I find him very exciting. I like his aggressiveness, and I like the fact that he's there to finish people, but he does it in a technical way. He's not just this like scrappy guy who comes forward with his head down and throws bombs and hopes something lands. He's a guy that times his opponent, and he sets little traps, and when he finds that opening, he takes advantage with devastating fashion. Do you know what I mean? And that's what I like about him. But more so than just his style of fighting, what I really like about him is his attitude over the last year, because he's the guy that was kind of on my periphery leading into the fight with Aljamain Sterling. Obviously, I was aware of Cory Sandhagen. I'd seen him fight. I enjoyed his fights in the past, but I never really paid so much attention to what he had to say. And that's something I started doing over the last year. I saw a number of his interviews, and the thing that I liked about him is how he kind of approaches the fight game. Do you know what I mean? I like the fact that he spoke about himself being an athlete, and he spoke about himself being a fighter, and trying to find the right balance between the two. Like trying to improve his skills as a fighter, but meant as an athlete, so he can have more weapons in his arsenal when he enters the octagon, but keep the mentality of a fighter, the aggressiveness, and understand that he's going in there and it's a fight and it's kill or be killed. And I feel like he's shown that kind of attitude and that progression in his game in these last 2 fights against Frankie Edgar and Marlon Moraes. And obviously there's a backstory to this fight as well. These guys trained together a number of years ago, and they've both spoken about their training, their sparring sessions together. And there's conflicting stories out there in terms of who got the better of who during those sparring sessions. I tell you what, I am fucking sweating. It is absolutely hot. I can feel sweat just trickling down the back of my neck, and that's a horrible sight for you guys to imagine, but it's because of this. I've got one of these so I can give you guys better lighting, right? Because if I don't have this on, it feels a bit too dark. Do you know what I mean? So I like to keep it on, but I'm sweating because of it, and this is the dedication. This is the dedication that I put into this. But anyway, so obviously there's a backstory between the two. So there's conflicting stories in terms of who got the better of who in those sparring sessions, and both guys have spoken about the fact that they've trained together. And TJ Dillashaw's tried to do a job of kind of sunning Cory Sandhagen by basically saying, oh yeah, you know, I helped him, I was his biggest fan, I was his biggest cheerleader, I wanted him to come into the UFC, blah blah blah, etc etc etc. And Cory, it feels like there's a competitiveness to it, right? Because I feel like it kind of started with the fact that Cory Sandhagen was quite vocal about wanting to fight TJ Dillashaw. So when it became apparent that there's going to be a bit of a bottleneck for a title shot in that division after how Aljamain Sterling and Peter Yan finished, and the fact that they're going to have to fight each other again, Cory Sandhagen was very, very kind of what's the right terminology? I've got it in the tip of my tongue. Proactive in calling out TJ Dillashaw, because obviously he was aware that his ban is coming to an end around that period, and yeah, like they've had kind of little swipes at each other, but from a competitive standpoint, like Cory Sandhagen hasn't really spoken in the same kind of derogatory manner that other people on the roster have spoken about TJ Dillashaw and the fact that he failed a drugs test. So let's talk about TJ Dillashaw and his failed drugs test. So obviously, look, man, he got popped for taking EPO in the lead up to his 125-pound fight against the flyweight fight against Triple C, the King of Cringe. And according to him, and I think probably USADA, Jeff Nowitzki, the Golden Snitch, they tested all of his samples leading in that he submitted for his fights prior to the time when he got popped for taking EPO, and apparently they came back clean. But once you get caught for cheating, you are tarred with that brush, because there's no telling when you started this and whether this is the first time you've done it or whether it's the 100th time you've done it. TJ Dillashaw is a guy that is extremely talented in the cage, but he's a guy that tends to rub me up the wrong way personally. I just and it's not just because of the cheating. Like, he's a guy that got caught, and I'm quite realistic about the fact that there's probably a number of guys out there that are currently active, that have fought in the past, that I've enjoyed watching, that have cheated in some way, shape or form, and they just haven't got caught yet. Do you know what I mean? So I'm quite realistic about that. But I feel like he rubs me up the wrong way. It's because the way he chose to deal with the fact that he cheated, and some might say, oh, it's commendable because he stood up, put his hand up and said, yeah, I did it. I cheated. And he spoke about his motivation behind cheating and whatnot. Shut up. But like, you know what? No matter what he would have done, it would have annoyed me. Do you know what I mean? If he went the other way and said, oh, I don't know how it got into my system, and just denied it, even though it was in his system, and just took a ban like most fighters do, that would have annoyed me. The fact that maybe it annoys me because I feel like, and I don't even know if this is a fact, but I feel like he wants some, like, he feels like he deserves some credit for standing up and being a man about it and taking it on the chin and admitting that he cheated. But for me, once you cheat, you know. And I know I just said I'm quite realistic, and I have, you know, I have the impression that fighters that I've enjoyed in the past probably have cheated and just haven't got caught. But, you know, you can't just hate everyone because they might have cheated. You have to wait for them to get caught for you to start having negative feelings towards them. And that's how I currently feel about TJ Dillashaw. Aside from that, man, I think a little bit, I don't know, I just have a little bit of a bad taste in my mouth about TJ Dillashaw. And the reason why I have a bad taste in my mouth is when I remember when he got caught, he got the 2-year suspension, and I remember watching an interview that Dominic Cruz did, I think with Ara Hawani, and he said, "Oh, that's not a punishment. That's a good thing for him. It gives him 2 years to sort out any injuries that he's had. It gives him some time off. He's able to reset and recalibrate. And 2 years will go quite quickly, and he'll be back, and he'll be in better shape mentally and physically, and it will probably add to the longevity of his career." And that's always stuck with me. And then these 2 years kind of went by, and, you know, now we're in a position where he's back, he's ready to fight. And I've just been having that thought in my head over and over again. And I feel like, why does he get this unfair advantage? And then he was talking about how he went away and he started a business, and, you know, he's got like a franchise for some food outlet or something like that. And he said, what did he say? That he doesn't really need to fight anymore. Financially, he's secure with his other business interests. And that annoyed me. That annoyed me. And I know that's not really very, like from my point of view, I shouldn't be getting annoyed by a man making the best use of his time off. Like, that's what anyone would have done. But I suppose, like I say, he just rubs me up the wrong way. Same way Wonder Boy Thompson rubs me up the wrong way. And I can't even explain to you why. Like, he's the nicest bloke in the world. He just seems so nice. Everyone seems to like him. Nobody has ever had a bad word to say about him, except for me, this guy. He just annoys me. And I know I'm wrong. I'm the one who's in the wrong for being annoyed by a guy that's extremely nice. But for me, he just feels like he's too nice. But there's no such thing as being too nice. It's just because I'm not a very nice person. That's probably what it is. But I digress. The fight itself, right? Both of these guys, they're extremely, like I say, they're extremely technical. They rely heavily on footwork and managing distance between themselves and the opponent, setting traps that they later come back to try and expose and hurt their opponent. The only thing that I will say is obviously TJ Dillashaw is the better rounded mixed martial artist because he has a wrestling background. And obviously there's a discrepancy in height and reach with both of these guys. And I'm not sure how used to TJ Dillashaw is fighting someone that is that much taller than him. But then obviously being the shorter guy, it might make it easier for him to take Cory Sandhagen down if that's what he wants to do. I'm not going to sit here and try and break down this fight because these guys do way too much. There's so much kind of nuances to the game that this untrained eyes can't see. Do you know what I mean? So I'm not going to sit here and pretend to you guys. I just know that when I watch that fight, I'm going to be hella excited. It will be interesting to see where TJ Dillashaw is at. Whether those 2 years have been a positive for him in terms of being able to hit the ground running on his return, being able to just find that same beat that he left with, and whether he's been able to repair any injuries and things of that nature. And yeah, like I'm interested in seeing that. One thing that I will say is TJ Dillashaw to me seems like a guy that that because he's so reliant on footwork and movement and little kind of feints and things of that nature, it seems like he's a guy that's so dedicated to the sport. He just continued training throughout those 2 years, obviously after he got his shoulder sorted and recovered, etc. But does that equate to the experience he would have had in the octagon, keeping him up to speed? He would have fought maybe four or five times in those last 2 years. You can probably hear my dad trying to get the dog away from the front door, so I need to go downstairs soon. But yeah, I'm really excited about this fight. I'm a little bit annoyed because I'm going camping this weekend, so I'm not going to be able to watch it live. I've got it on record on that TV behind me, so I'll have to come home and watch it. But yeah, the fight itself, it's an early kickoff. Like, the main card starts at midnight over here. And do you know how much of a luxury that is for a UK MMA fight? I'm so annoyed that I won't be able to take advantage of the early kickoff and getting to bed at a reasonable time. I'll be in a tent, sleeping next to my mate in a sleeping bag instead. That's what I'm doing this weekend. So yeah, I better start packing, to be honest. It's 9 o'clock now. And I haven't even had a shower since I got my hair cut earlier. So I was at the barber's earlier. Yeah, I got myself sorted out. I had a haircut. And check this out, right? So London Shoot Fighters, the gym, is just around the corner from my barber shop, right? And I'm sitting there minding my own business, and this geezer walks in with a cauliflower ear. And then I thought, hello, this must be a fighter. But I didn't recognise him. And then my barber obviously knows I do this YouTube stuff. And he looks at me, he goes, oh, do you know who that is? I looked at him, I was like, oh, don't say that. And I knew it was going to be a Cage Warriors fighter or a Bellator fighter. I go, no, sorry, I don't recognise you. He goes, oh, that's Mike Shipman. He fights for Bellator. And I felt so embarrassed. He goes, and then my barber goes, oh yeah, you say you got an MMA podcast and you don't even know who that is. And then actually I was sitting next to Mike Shipman at the time, and I went on his Instagram, and then I saw his photos and I recognised him. And then the reason why I didn't recognise him in the barbershop is because he had a mustache with a kind of clean shave. And usually he's got stubble or a beard. And also, without sounding gay, it's easier to recognize him without his shirt on. Do you know what I mean? I've only ever seen him with his shirt off, and if I saw his tattoos on his chest, I'd recognize him. But yeah, that's how my day at the barbers went. I don't even know why I'm telling you guys this, but anyway, let me know what you guys think about the Cory Sandhagen and TJ Dillashaw fight. Put your comments below. Don't be scared to smash that like button, guys. Hey, smash that like button. Subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. Share this with a friend if you've enjoyed it. I'll catch you guys next time. Ta-da.